disciple, and whoever is a disciple will be a Christian. If you looked at the scriptures we looked at last time, you will find out that it is not automatic that once you bear the appellation of a Christian, then you automatically are a disciple. And from the scriptures that we read, we found that every time that Jesus called people, he didn't call them just to be Christians, he called them first to be disciples. And I said to you 2 weeks ago that if you read through the scriptures, you will find out that the word disciple is only used 3 times in the entire scripture. One in the book of Acts, one in the book of Peter, I think twice in the book of Acts or so, or one in Ephesians, can't remember. But it's used only 3 times in the entire Bible. And the word that is translated Christian is the Greek word that is Christianos. Christianos. And even though there are 2 schools of thought as to the meaning of the word Christianos, majority of the people who translate that word, who give the interpretation of that Greek word, say that the word means a follower of Christ. A follower of Christ. It's another group of scholars translate the word Christianos or Christian to mean little Christs, indicative or drawing their conclusion from the fact that Christian is a combination of 2 words, Christ or Chris and then Tian. Tian means little, Chris obviously Christ, Christos. So Christos, little, so little Christ. But majority of the scholars interpret that Greek word Christianos as followers of Christ. And if you look at it carefully, I said to you 2 weeks ago that before one could be an apostle, he needed to be first a disciple. And if he was going to continue as an apostle, he must continue as a disciple. So the primary goal in the heart of God is not association. God is not in a hurry to associate you with Christianity. What God intends to achieve with your life is mold you into a disciple. So if you have been around the Christian faith for many years and you do not yet bear the burdens of a disciple, the investments and the resources of God channeled towards your direction have been a waste. It means that the things that Jesus has in mind to achieve with the mortals that bend the knee to him have not been achieved in your life. It means that the burdens of the Lord in the heart of Jesus to establish upon the face of the earth have not been established in your life. It means that all the years you have spent around the Christian faith have been fruitless, and you have just been enjoying association. You have not touched anything in reality. The measurement of the Christian life is in the depth of your discipleship. If you have not submitted to the dictates and the dealings of discipleship, then you are not yet a Christian. Remember when we read the book of Acts, chapter 11, we found that it was them that were disciples that were called what? Christians. So, for you to be recognized as a follower of Christ, it means that there are certain conducts that would have characterized your life as a product of discipleship. As a product of discipleship. And I said that if you look at the life of Jesus, you will find that as powerful as Jesus was, Jesus' obsession was not conquering Rome. Jesus' obsession was not delivering Israel from the bondage and the affliction of Roman rule. Jesus spent his entire 3.5 years of ministry investing his life in 12 men. So what Jesus was doing was that he was training these 12 men to know God and know his ways. That's what Jesus was doing. All through his life, he invested his time in showing them God. He wanted them to know God. He wanted them to understand the will of God, the burden of God, how God thinks, how God acts. This was his body. When you look at the way Jesus dealt with his disciples, there is no time that Jesus ever spoke to his disciples in motivational terms. In fact, if you were here when we did one of the conclaves, I said that if you go and study the teachings of Jesus, it was as if every time he spoke to the disciples, he spoke to them in such a way that he wanted them to make the decision to live. Hard sayings were channeled to them so that they could understand that in this life, if you choose to walk with Jesus, your life is going to be a contradiction. But it is that contradiction that will guarantee that you will look like Christ. Are you with me tonight? And the purpose of the Christian life is not that you drive a car. It's not that you build a house. It's not that you get married. The purpose of the Christian life is that on a daily basis, you are looking like Christ. So I told you that a disciple is a learner, a disciple is a student, a disciple is a follower. And I showed you 4 things that characterize the disciple. 1, he's a follower of Christ. 2, he is being changed by Christ. 3, he builds his entire life around the core that is Christ. Number 4, he is committed to the mission of Christ. So what a disciple is really is one that is consistently learning Christ and is committed to achieving the purposes of Christ while he is on the face of the earth until he dies. He is consistently learning.